I thought I haven't read that much in October, but I have read 10 books this month. This is way beyond my expectation because I had quite a rough month this time. And the first book I read was The Djinn Waits 100 Years. This girl immigrates to South Africa and starts to live there with her father, and she is a very young girl. I think she's about like elementary school age or something. And she starts to know these people who lives in the same mansion. But this mansion has some kind of secrets and some kind of tragic backstory, and this girl tries to find that story by rummaging through the hidden room in this mansion. I was a little bit afraid that this book might be too scary for me because I hate horror movies. I hate any ghost things, but this one doesn't have the kind of so-called jump scare kind of moments in this book, so that was a relief. The vibe overall was very eerie, so it was very fitting for October. The story itself was so heartbreaking. I think I had to stop at one point because I felt like my chest was burning with aches. I've also read the crime mystery fiction, which is The Man Who Died Twice. Although it is quite a thick book, I didn't have much trouble to go through it because usually the thick book's problem for me is, at least, when it first starts, I have a hard time to get into the story. It takes about some chapters to really feel immersed in the story. But this one, I didn't have much trouble. In a way, it's probably because I already know this character. This is the second book of the Thursday Murder Club series. This story is about 4 retired elderly people who have this interest in solving mystery and murder. They try to find the stolen diamonds from the gang. The problem is the dead bodies are piling up. I actually like this one way more than the first one in the series because the first one I felt like a bit too slow in a way, but this one had a way higher stakes, so I just felt like, oh my god, is another person going to die? So that was fun to read. Then my oh my, Intermezzo. I don't get this book. I had such a hard time going through this. I almost DNF'd this so many times. I had such a hard time with this older brothers chapter because in this older brothers perspective, some sentences are so fractured that I couldn't really understand what was going on. Especially the early chapters were extremely confusing. I annotated some parts because I really like some quotes, but overall, I didn't really feel like, oh, this is the best Sally Rooney book or this is one of the best top 5 books that I've read this year. I think if you don't have enough mental energy to digest this book is a bit too convoluted. After that debacle, I reread one of my favorite fantasy novels, Long Live Evil. I will not stop talking about how pretty this cover is. And the story is about this girl who is very sick in the real world, but she gets this deal that she will jump into this fantasy story which exists as a book in reality, but she will become one of the characters in this fantasy book and she will live through it, and she has to get this magical flower from the garden, and then she will get cured and come back to the reality. When she gets into this fantasy world, she becomes an evil stepsister of a heroine in the story, and then tomorrow is her execution day. I've been a fantasy fan for a while, so I know a lot of tropes, so I liked a lot whenever this book subverts these tropes in a very clever way. I cannot wait for the second book, and I adore the ending of this one. I didn't expect that it would end like that. Masters of That was not really up to my expectation because I enjoyed her another work, which is called One for My Enemy, a lot, so I had a very high hopes for this. I didn't really enjoy the writing style in this book because it felt a little bit incoherent at times. Personally, I had way more entertainment with One for My Enemy than this one. Although I am complaining about this book, I still like how the love story between Fox and I think his name was Brant. I like how these two characters interact with each other. The past relationship they had was so beautiful and heartbreaking, and I really enjoyed that part, but this whole immortal game part was a bit confusing for me. First, I had a really hard time to understand this whole concept. Secondly, I didn't feel that attached to other characters. I liked Bee, who is a vampire, but she didn't have a lot of chapters or parts in this story as much as I hoped. I also read Raybearer Duology, so this is Raybearer, the first one, and the second one is called Redemptor. I knew from the beginning that this is YA novels, so I didn't expect these to become like adult epic fantasy novels. I enjoyed the first book way more than the second one because the second one is a bit slower in terms of pace, and a large chunk of story takes in place with preparation of this final adventure. But the whole concept is very interesting. This young girl gets trained to become one of the companion with the prince in this kingdom, and her goal is to kill this prince after getting selected as one of the council members. She cannot change her goal because this is kind of drilled into her by her evil mother. This duology was worth to read because I needed some palate cleansers between very heavy books. I've also read adult fantasy on my Kindle, Certain Dark Things. This one is written by the author who wrote Mexican Gothic. The story is set in Mexico City, but this one is not exactly our reality. First of all, there are a bunch of vampires, but their whole humanity also knows that there are vampires and they are real. So Mexico City bans vampires from getting into the city, but the protagonist needs to sneak into the city and survive through the escape because she is being hunted by another vampire tribe. Police is closing in and another vampire tribe who is hunting her is also closing in. So she is in a very dire situation, but she meets this human boy who is willing to sacrifice for her. There are multiple vampires in this book, so it is very entertaining to read what kind of traits they have. It is also less than 300 pages, so it is quick and easy to read. I think it is quite okay to try this book if you want a little bit different kind of vampire story. Severance was quite shocking to read because I didn't know this will be this bleak. This is a dystopian novel that depicts how the world is like after and also before, with this fever that wipes out the entire humanity. I enjoyed the protagonist's journey a lot because she is this stuck-up person who is really obsessed with routines and daily safety, and she is very averse to adventures or new routines. Even when this pandemic is going through New York, she is so adamant and willing to go back to her office because that's how she has been doing all this time. I was just fascinated by how she was so willing to go through all these hassles and hardships just to be with her routine. And I totally get that because when the life is full chaos around you, you want to get into this, at least this tiny bit of safety. Last but not least, I've also read Part of Your Word. This is a romance novel, and I enjoyed the romance between this well-known famous doctor and this humble carpenter. It is a small-town romance packed with a lot of adoring moments. Personally, I didn't really feel like smut scenes were necessary because I didn't really feel like the whole scenes really add up. I don't think it needed that much detail. This was a good book as a comfort read. So those were the 10 books I have read in October. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Bye!